Howdy, hi, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Noah's Nest. If you don't know what Noah's Nest is, first of all, hi, hello, and howdy. I'm Noah. And in Noah's Nest, there's a couple things that I do. I either talk about a fantasy type topic that could go over different TTRPGs, movies, video games, something of that fantasy genre. I will either make a couple characters throughout the TTRPGs that I have reviewed, or I will review a TTRPG that I have finally read after how many months. And today might be a long one. I'm not sure yet. I got a whole script here and we'll figure it out as we go. But I will be reviewing a TTRPG. Now, I will firstly preface this off is that it is simple but yet confusing at the same time. The game I will be talking about is Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is a game about being a scoundrel, being a criminal that is trying to do heists, robberies, or just pretty much criminal-based stuff. In this episode, I'm going to try my best to do a full breakdown of how to play and what you will possibly need to play Blades in the Dark. So firstly, what is this game? Blades in the Dark is a game about being a criminal, trying to climb into the power of like a haunted industrial city of Doskvol. It is kind of inspired by the Peaky Blinders and Leverage TV shows, blending crime, supernatural, and character drama all into one. You and your crew will be pulling off different heists, managing your faction, and dealing with consequences throughout your choices throughout these different heists. While you're all being pursued by possibly the relentless bluecoats and maybe even revengeful ghosts. But what makes Blades in the Dark stand out? This game is kind of designed to keep things moving fast, focus on the action, the consequences, and the dramatic choices that all tie together so you don't have to focus on endless planning for hours. Here's the best that I can do of a step-by-step walkthrough of the book. Starting with its core mechanics. Before you can even run a crew of scoundrels, you need to understand the core mechanics of the game. Blades in the Dark runs a simple and flexible and a little bit confusing system built around actions, dice pulls, and consequences. I'll take it slow so we're not trying to get lost everywhere. So in Blades, when your character tries to do something risky or tries to do an action, you roll a pool of 6-sided dice based on the action that you are choosing. Every character in this game, it is called a playbook, has a list of 12 different actions that they can do. Some of them can be prowl for sneaking, or sway for deception, or even wreck for destroying things. Your dice pool is equal to the number of dots you have in that action. So if you happen to have 2 dots in another skill is skirmish, you end up rolling 2 dice when you are trying to fight someone up close. This is the main mechanic. When you roll, you are looking for the highest single dice result. So 1 through 3 would be a failure. You don't succeed and something bad can happen to you. A 4 or 5 is a partial success, where you will succeed, but there could be a minor consequence. And 6 is a full success. You do what you intended without any form of complications. Unlike D&D, you are rolling against a difficult number. Instead, the GM decides your position and effect before the roll. Now, before we worry about what does position and effect mean, I will tell you that right now. Position tells you how dangerous the situation will be before the roll. So there's 3 different positions. There is controlled, which is you are in a good spot, and even if you fail, it's not going to really do much. Next will be risky, which is the standard situation. Things could go well or they could get worse. And then there's desperate. You are in a tough spot, you are in deep trouble, and if you fail, it'll get even worse. Now, effect tells you how much impact your success will have. So there are also 3 here. There is great, that means you will make great or big progress or have a major result happen to you if you succeed. There's standard, where you will get the expected result. And then there's limited, where your action does not have a massive effect. It'll just have a smaller effect than normal. This system makes every roll feel weighted, where you always know what the stake is before you get to roll the dice. Now, you might think, wow, I only have 1 dice or I only have 2 dice and 1 skill, but I wish I could get more dice. Well, there's a way to get more dice. You're not just rolling and hoping for the best. Blades has ways where you can push the odds in your favor. One of them is by pushing yourself. By taking 2 stress, you can have an extra dice, increase your effect, or you can do something beyond the normal limits. Another option is, this is kind of cool, a devil's bargain, where the GM offers a bonus dice in exchange for possibly an extra complication, like drawing unwanted attention, or maybe even losing a valuable item. These mechanics make every roll kind of a gamble if you want to take that bargain. You could always get more dice, but it'll be at a cost. Now that covers the basic mechanics. Rolling dice, position, effect, and how to push your luck. Now, we can start talking about the bigger picture. Before we get into making your character, Blades in the Dark isn't just about you. It's about the whole crew. How it grows, how it can carve their place in the underworld, and how to pretty much upgrade your crew. Unlike many RPGs, where players act as independently, Blades in the Dark focuses on a crew as a central character. Your scoundrels don't just operate alone. They're a part of a criminal enterprise, growing their influence, gaining allies and enemies, and making a name for themselves in Doskvol's underworld. At the start of the game, your group picks a crew type. There's a couple different crew types that you can choose from that they specialize in. Each type has their own strengths, abilities, and different play styles. So you could have assassins, where they are kind of killers for hire. They deal with murdering, poisons, and stealthing around. You could have smugglers, where they just move illegal goods and people around the city. We also have shadows, where they are sneaky. Jesus Christ. My door just closed because the windows are open and I got scared. And next you could do a shadow, where there's sneaky burglars and spies who rely on stealth and deception. God. Each crew has their own advancement track, special abilities, and upgrades, making them distinct from every other crew. For example, assassins can take no traces. It reduces the heat they're given from jobs, while smugglers can choose like part of the family, making it easier to recruit new people into their crew. Just like characters, your crew earns XP and levels by completing missions and meeting certain goals. The more daring and bold your crimes are and the more successful they are, the faster your crew can rise in power. As your crew advances, you can improve your lair, gain new contracts, and expand your influence in the city. Now, speaking of influence, let's talk about the factions next. Because Doskvol, you're never really operating by yourself. Doskvol is alive with rival gangs, noble families, and even supernatural forces. Every crew exists with this tangled web of power, and your relationship with the different factions will shape the story around you. At the start of the game, your crew chooses which faction they have history with, who they've wronged, who they owe favors to, and who might have their back. Some factions will become allies, offer resources and protections, while others might see you and, destroy your job. And as you complete these jobs, your status with different factions change. Betraying one faction might get you good in another one, but it also means making enemies who will come after you later. Navigating faction politics is also a big part of Blade. Do you work with the powerful, immortal Lord Surlock? Do you stay with the Bluecoats' payroll, or do you make them your next target? All of these different choices can shape your crew's story. Now we're done with crews. We're done worrying about that. Now let's talk about your characters. Let's talk about the scoundrels to make up your team. So in Blades in the Dark, each character belongs to a playbook, which defines their skills, background, and special abilities. Think of these as character classes, but a lot more flexible. There's a couple of different characters or playbooks that you can choose from. You could do a Hound, which is a deadly sharpshooter and tracker. It's really good with ranged weapons. You could do a Slide. They're a smooth-talking manipulator who excels at deception and disguise. You could be a Spider, a mastermind and strategist, great at planning and social manipulation. Or even a Whisperer, a mystic who deals with ghosts, arcane power, and forbidden knowledge. And a couple others that you can choose from, depending on how you want to play. Each playbook has a set of special abilities that let you tailor your character's strengths. For example, a Lurk, which is a stealthy infiltrator who expects and excels in breaking and enterings, can take a Infiltrator, making them undetectable when sneaking, while a Cutter, which is a skilled fighter and enforcer, might take Battleborn, allowing them to fight like a seasoned warrior. Creating a character is quick, but packed with depth. You'll choose your playbook, assign points to your actions, and pick your starting abilities. Also, you'll be able to define your heritage, pretty much where your character is from, your background, what you did before becoming a scoundrel, and your personal vice. Because Blades, every character has a weakness. In Doskvol, everyone needs to get away and get off and just take away that edge. Each character has a vice, something that they indulge in to relieve stress, kick back, get your hands undirty. It could be from gambling, drinking, religious devotion, or even something even supernatural. This isn't just flavor, it's actually mechanically important. Managing stress is a massive part of the game, and indulging in your vice is one of the only ways to reduce it. But indulging too much, and your character might overdo it, losing time or maybe even getting into trouble. So we have characters, we have our crew, we have our relationships to the city, but Blades in the Dark isn't just pulling off heists. It can also be what happens before, during, after, or even in between the jobs. Next, we'll talk about the score, free time, and downtime. So, the heart of Blades in the Dark is a simple but effective gameplay. It goes from free play to the score to downtime and then back again over and over. So free play is an open-ended part of the game where what happens between the jobs. This is when characters can gather information, interact with NPCs, or even explore the world of Doskvol. You could gather information. Before jumping into the score, your crew might scout out the target, talk to informants, or even bribe the right person. The GM doesn't set the DC for this. The players will take the action, and the GM will describe what they might learn based on the role. You could have character moments where a player could pursue a personal goal, deal with the faction, or even roleplay relationships. And kind of the main thing for free play is setting up the next score. It naturally leads into the next big job. The crew decides what they're going to go after, but instead of spending hours of planning, Blades in the Dark uses a streamlined approach to get straight into the action, which is called the engagement roll. The engagement roll is kind of basing off of how lucky are you before you get to your score. Are you in a good spot? Are you almost caught in the middle of it? Or are you even late to the score? This is pretty much determining how lucky you are to get this score. Speaking of the score, let's talk about that next. This is where the real action happens. Whether you're robbing a vault, assassinating a target, or even smuggling illegal goods, the score is kind of the main part of the game. So planning a score, unlike RPGs, where players can spend hours planning every single detail for a mission, Blades kind of just immediately skips all that prep work and jumps straight into the action. The only thing that you need to decide on is the type of approach your crew is going to take. There's a couple different options that you can go for. There's assault, which is kind of just ambush it, direct violence. You could do occult, which is involving something supernatural, deception, which is trickery or manipulation, or even a couple others. Once you have chosen the approach, the players answers one key detail about the job. Like, what's the point of attack, or who's the first target of deception? Then, instead of planning, the group jumps straight into the action with an engagement roll. Like I said before, the engagement roll determines how the crew's initial actions go. The GM rolls a number of dice based on the factors, whether the target is prepared for the attack, or whether the crew has inside help, and even whether the job is particularly bold or even reckless. 6 means you start in a controlled position. That means everything is starting to go off smoothly. 4 or 5 is you'll start in a risky position where there could be almost immediately some obstacles. And 1 to 3, you could be in a desperate position where something has already gone very, very wrong. This roll sets up the scene of the job. Maybe the lurk is already inside the mansion, slipping past some guards, or maybe even the blue coats were tipped off and they're waiting right at the docks. Now, once the score begins, the game moves fairly quickly. Players describe what they're doing, roll for actions, and deal with the consequences. Couple things. There's no longer planning. If the players need something, they can use a mechanic called a flashback to show how they prepared. This kind of keeps the game moving instead of getting stuck on what-if scenarios. Position and effects matter. Every roll is framed by the position. Pretty much how dangerous is the situation, and effect, which is how impactful the action has. And next is another part of a mechanic where clocks track your progression. Instead of rolling for every tiny detail, the GM uses clocks to track major goals, like breaking the vault will set up 4, 6, 8 markers on a clock, or maybe even escaping a chase, which could do the same thing. A score typically lasts an hour or maybe 2 of play, with constant action, shifting dangers, and quick decision making. Before I go on to downtime, I will go back real quick to flashbacks. So for flashbacks, that mechanic is if you are in a middle of a score, and if you need some type of boost or help, you could use stress to use a flashback. This you can describe as what situation have you done in the past, like either evening, weeks, months ago, to help you in this particular situation. You will have to describe it. It has to make sense. And if it works, you'll be gaining an additional dice. You could have a different shift in your position or even an effect. Now, let's go all the way back to downtime. Once your crew has completed your job, you don't have to jump in straight to the next heist. Thank God. Blades in the Dark has a structured downtime phase where characters recover, deal with consequences, and even prepare for what's next. Downtime consists of a couple different key steps, and each character gets 2 downtime activities after every single score. Couple ones are payoff. You get coin based on how successful your job is. Bigger jobs mean bigger payouts, but not all money is clean money. Next is heat. Crime attracts attention, and after each job, your crew will gain heat based on how loud or messy things were. Too much heat, and the law, or even worse, comes knocking. Next is entanglements. Every job has unintentional consequences. Maybe a rival gang makes a move, or even the bluecoats shake you down for bribes. A couple other activities that you can do is indulge in your vice. Reduce your stress by giving your characters weakness. You could be healing, recovering from your injuries. Unlike RPGs, wounds don't just go away. You need a doctor and time to heal. You could train and give yourself more experience to improve on your skills. You could also reduce heat by working to lower your wanted level. Or you can work on your long-term projects. Work on your personal goals like crafting gadgets, learning secrets, or even expanding on your criminal network. Downtime adds a strategic element to it. Do you focus on healing and stress relief, or do you try to get ahead of your rivals? Choices can impact your next job. So over time, your scoundrels and crew become more skilled, and your crew becomes more powerful. So characters earn XP by making bold moves, playing with their character strengths, and even struggling with their traumas. When you gain enough XP, you can increase your action rating, or even pick new special abilities, making your scoundrel even more dangerous. Your crew levels just like your characters. Your crew levels up just like your characters do. As you complete scores, gain turf, and expand your influence, your crew earns XP, allowing you to unlock upgrades like a secured hideout, more specialists, or even access to more powerful contacts. Advancements in Blades isn't just about numbers, it's also about the storytelling. Over time, your ragtag gang of thieves and assassins can probably grow to one of the most feared factions in Doskvol. So far, I focused on player experience. Now let's talk about how Blades in the Dark kind of runs. Unlike traditional RPGs, where the GM prepares everything in advance, Blades kind of encourages improv. There's no need to plan every step of a heist because the game uses the flashback system. Covered this a little bit earlier, but flashbacks, instead of spending hours planning a job, players can declare flashbacks to show how they prepared for challenges. Want to grab a guard? Call for a flashback for a quick action and move on. This kind of keeps the play fast and cinematic. Clocks, instead of rolling for every small action, the GM progresses clocks. Circular progress bars that fill based on rolls. You might have a clock for escaping the bluecoats or even a clock for gaining a new territory. And consequences and resistance rolls. When bad things happen, players have a chance to resist consequences by rolling to reduce harm or avoid disasters, but it comes with a cost of stress. This game style is more about reacting to the player's choices than controlling the story. It's a game of consequences, momentum, and a dynamic storytelling. And as Blades in the Dark, I've said this name many times, Doskvol. That's where the story takes place. Or if you can't say Doskvol, you can say Doskvol. That also works. It's a haunted industrial city filled with crime, corruption, and supernatural horrors. It is a city without sunlight. It exists in a world where the sun was shattered long ago. The city is surrounded by an ectoplasmic barrier that keeps vengeful spirits at bay, and ghostly energies powers its machinery. It's a gothic industrial setting with a mix of Victorian England, steampunk, and supernatural horror. In Doskvol, there's districts, factions, and a ghost field. The districts are divided throughout the whole city. Think of Brightstone, the Gain-controlled Crow's Feed, and even the haunted Lost District. For factions, there's over a dozen major factions, from the noble houses to the underworld gangs, shapes the city's power struggles. And the ghost field. Death is not the end. When some characters die, their spirit kind of lingers. It could often become to a dangerous ghost, and even whisperers and other mystics can interact with the supernatural energy. And that was my best of a full breakdown of Blades in the Dark. I know I missed a couple things, but generally that's kind of it. Consequences and storytelling momentum, where their daring scoundrels carve out their place in the dark haunted city. So the key takeaways I would do is focus on the narrative over mechanics. The game is going to move too fast for you to care. Embrace on flashbacks. Don't get stuck planning. If you're having issues with a score, use a flashback. Use clocks and faction statuses. to track long-term consequences or even long-term goals. Remember, stress, vice, and trauma. Characters can change over time, and it could get rough or a lot better. And in my opinion, the setting is alive. Doskvol reacts to your crew's choices. If you're looking for a game that blends crime, supernatural, and a fast-paced action, Blades in the Dark is something that you should try. And that's everything. That's the best that I could do, and I think it got the point across. So thank you all for listening to Noah's Nest. If you like this and want to hear more or know what other how-to plays, check out all of our stuff that we already done in the past. We've done C&C talks, tavern talks, other Noah's Nest, and how-to plays. We even done a couple one-shots in the past. So if you like anything, go check it out. If you like our voices and possibly want to ask us some questions, check us out on our social medias at TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, all at Creatures and Cantrips or Creature Cantrip. Either of them kind of works. We don't bite. I don't bite. But we also have Patreon and Buymeacoffee if you want to support us that way. But you also don't have to support us in that way. You could also like, share, comment, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. It really helps us in any way, shape, or form. It gets more people out there to know who we are, and it grows our little family even more. So thank you all for listening. Try out this game and let me know. Let me know if it was worth it. If it was a bit more confusing than you kind of thought, or maybe it was just easier and I was just a dumbass. But let me know. But anyway, thank you all for listening. And the last thing I'll say is see you, love you, miss you. Goodbye, guys.